All right, well, this morning we are covering some specific, fun, upbeat emotions, and I want you to feel them today. If you've been here the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about some harder moods and seeing how Jesus handled them, but this week, the mood is wowzer, all right? Wowzer. And we're covering words like this, and so we have a couple moments for you that I want you to experience these words, right? Kind of firsthand. The first one is this. Woo, right? Wowzer. Oh, there's an asterisk there, and some fine print. Not in cash, but in spiritual growth value. This $500 will be delivered to you through a message by the one and only Master, Pastor DeMaster. And now you're confused, maybe disgusted a little bit of how this might all work. And well, maybe you're mad and frustrated and feeling a little let down, which just go back to the last couple weeks' messages and you can get even more value. But I just took you on maybe a wowzer roller coaster. And for those that are still in shock and need clarity, I was joking. You're not getting $500 today. Sorry to ruin your lunch plans. But wowzers can also come from just images like this, where it's like, wow, whoa, right? And just awe, this feeling where your words kind of stop. That's awe. Or maybe you see an image like this, and you're just like, whoa, how did that happen? And it maybe even leads you to research, how did that come to be? That's wonder. Or maybe something happens to you and it just triggers interest. You see this transformation from something that crawls to something that flies, and it's just whoa, which all of a sudden makes you curious. Again, wowzers. By the way, these examples were brought to you by my children, so you can thank them for that, as children are full of wowzer moments, are they not, right? We can turn the lights back on, but now that you got to experience some of this, I got to ask you, on a spectrum, on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you let yourself experience these wow moments? 1 being never, and 10 being multiple times a day. So for real, think of a number right now, and hold on to that thought. And then one other spectrum, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much or how intensely do you let yourself experience these moments? 1 being I hardly flinch, 10 being I let it go to the best feeling in the world. Again, hold on to that number too. But the self-assessment should show you something. I mean, assuming all your wowzer moments don't lead typically to a letdown as it did in the beginning, but your ability to be wowed and how often shows your openness, your ability to notice what is around you, and if you will actually let yourself be impressed with amazement, with wonder, or if you're more of a mono-feeling person and you are just kind of more soft, nice, content, fine type of person, which fine is the most dangerous word to say if you do not want to get into a longer conversation with someone, especially if you're describing how your spouse looks, right? Today, what we're doing is we're looking at these wowzer moments. And spoiler alert, I hope you learn to see that these moments are many times there for us to experience fully, many times on purpose and in a rich way without letdown. But before we do go any further, I do want to just say, welcome to Center Point. My name is Aaron DeMaster. I'm a pastor here. I'm pumped that you're here today. Just so you know, our vision is to be a church for people that maybe wouldn't have a church home or typically go to church. And that is our intention and why we do what we do. Our way of doing that, or how we make that happen, is we help you who's here take your next step in your relationship with God. And we hope that one of your steps will at one point help us be a church for the unchurched and serve and be a part of what we're doing here. But if you haven't been here for the past few weeks, what we're doing is we're digging into emotions, specifically Brene Brown's. She claims in her book, Atlas of the Heart, that there are 87 different emotions or states of being. And we've been using these workbooks all series long. And what we're doing is we're using this to dial in on what 30 of those 87 actually mean. Survey results show that most people can list only 3 emotions. Like if you had to list emotions right now, what would you say? What could you come up with? And typically what people respond with is the inside out characters. It's happiness or joy, it's anger and then sad or sadness. Those are typically what people would list. But we're trying as people to become more emotionally aware and intelligent of those other 84. Like we got to be better than a Disney movie, right? We got to be better than our children, right? Like as they're actually teaching kids in Inside Out too, like more than these three, right? And the reason we're doing this as a church is partially that, so that we can know ahead of our kids in all of that. But also, because when you study Jesus, it's hard to not see that he is like the most emotionally aware, the most emotionally intelligent person ever. So not only do I want us to see him as Lord and Savior, but to also learn his methods in this area of living. Because I believe when you are a more emotionally intelligent person or more emotionally aware, it can change everything for you. We're better able to understand ourselves and know what drives us and what's happening within us. And then we're better able to understand others, like what drives them, what motivates them, and so that we can help them be the best they can be. So dudes and ladies who are like, emotions, I'm good. I want to challenge you, because whether this is for you or for the good of others, this is necessary. And the positive is, this week is WOWZER. Like today's teaching will help you experience, I think, greater highs, greater wonder, greater wow. And I think truly, like when you embrace these emotions, things in the world will seem better, look better, taste better, even feel better, like for real. So, and I think we all want that. So can you put the work in with me for the next 30 minutes or so to figure out how? Can I get a collective head nod? All right, I like it. So to get us rolling, I want to look to the Bible to see how Jesus interacted with these words, or at least like what was Jesus' expectation with WOWZER moments. And what is obvious to see is Jesus knew these emotions were powerful. And the person I want to look at, again, is Peter. If you were here last week, we talked about Peter a lot and how he went through the moods of like when things didn't go as planned. And in the end, like we see after he kind of resigns from doing ministry for Jesus and goes back to fishing, like his old occupation, Jesus pulls him back and he becomes the foundation to the church. Well, today I want to kind of pick back up with Peter, not to just repeat what we talked about last week, but to kind of now observe how the mood of WOWZER was substantial and helped him initially get close to God. And then my theory is these moods also made it easier for him to be restored. Because when you study Peter, he had some wow moments and he felt them. And we're going to look at a bunch of chapters in the book of Matthew today. So if you like have a Bible with you and you want to follow along, I would love that. It's Matthew 4 is where we're going to start. And if you want to follow along or highlight, please do. But we're going to be starting in Matthew 4, and we talked about this last week, how he catches an insane amount of fish, Peter does. And it's in a place that wasn't typical, like in an intense surprise that he experiences. I want you to see this scene as it kind of sets it up, so to speak.
Put that down for a catch. A little farther out.
I don't have a quarrel with you, teacher. We've been doing this all night. Nothing.
So he's been out fishing all night, no fish, and he's kind of frustrated. And then all of a sudden this bystander who doesn't really know yet is like, you should put your nets over here. And he does, and this is what happens.
Grab it! Take that side! No!
And he's in awe, right? He's in awe of what's in front of him, and he's in awe of the person who made it happen. The man who can do things that are kind of out of this world, and it moves Peter to follow. It says, at once they left their nets and followed him. Luke's depiction of this story, he says, Peter kind of bows down and is like, "Go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man." That's not just surprise after this happens. That's awe, thinking, I'm small, you're not. And then there continues to be this interest in Jesus and what he's doing. Like from Matthew 4 to 13, like if you were to kind of look through from 4 to 13, like Jesus is teaching, he's explaining about the law and salt and light and about vows and revenge, and he's teaching some more. He's healing people with leprosy. It's just like he's doing all these things. And I imagine while Peter is with him, he is like, what and who is this man? Why is he doing what he's doing? Like, I know the Old Testament scriptures, but like this seems different. And then in Matthew 14, interest changes what happens in Matthew 14 is Peter walks on water. It's that moment. It's this big moment where his interest and awe, it changes. He now has wonder. Like the storm hits, and I want to imagine this, right? So like the storm comes, and it's like this. And the disciples, like, just prior to this, they saw Jesus heal and teach and perform miracles, and they split up. Jesus is like, I'll meet up with you later, but they're on a boat by themselves. And so in my mind, they're on this boat, still just in awe of what they experienced with Jesus, of who this person is, and that they get to follow. They're so interested in him. But a storm hits, and fear is natural. But Peter surprisingly sees Jesus walking on the water, and this surprise emotion induces huge wonder in Peter. He has a change of heart about what's happening, the awe of who he's been with, and it brings him confidence. Like the scriptures say, he sees Jesus and says, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come out on the water. Come, Jesus says. And like side note, it wasn't like it was prefaced that the Son of Man or Son of God could walk on water. Nevertheless, another person could walk on water with him. But Jesus is walking, and the awe has been there. But now wonder set in, and this awe and wonder has been moved to action. Like thinking, does this guy control the universe? I want to test and see. And Peter decides to walk and go, right? Yet his mind, I'm sure in the moment, like when you let reality set in, it's like, I'm walking on water. I'm walking on water. I am walking on water, right? Like it's like freak out moment. And what happens is he starts to sink in that moment, and Jesus rescues him. Which again, wonder, but also in the mix of that confusion. Because he had deeper belief, but he also had doubt. And more confusion on like who and what and how do you do this? Can you imagine like reflecting on that moment afterwards? Like how awesome that was, but also how much unknown you now have. And then comes some really interesting things in Matthew 16 and 17, a couple chapter or two later. In Matthew 16, Jesus asked Peter who he thinks he is, and Peter says this. He says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Again, this is a powerful profession, and Jesus leans into it by calling this impressive profession the rock, or him, the rock. But regardless, he's saying, I'm going to use you as the foundation of my church moving forward. But I don't know if you remember, again, just a chapter or two earlier, Peter had confusion on like who and what Jesus really could do because he doubted him in the water. Like, it's not like you can just let doubt go in a day or two, right? It wasn't like 2 days later, Peter's like, I no longer have doubt, right? It's still there. There's still confusion, I'm sure. Doubt isn't this switch of just being on or off, but what we see is the choice of faith by Peter to profess this perceived truth of who Jesus is and who he's expecting him to be. And Jesus is impressed by that. Then in chapter 17, we see what I want to call the twilight moment, like literally the movie Twilight moment. I know we're building something in the Peter story, but I got to hijack this moment for a bit and talk about Twilight, the movie. Who's seen it? There's like embarrassing hands that may be going up. Okay. It was that movie, I don't know if you remember, it was that movie in the 2000s, like when every girl was instantly into tall, pale, skinny introverts. All the opposites of me. This guy, anybody else experience that? Okay, just me experienced that. Okay. But anyways, like there is a scene in the movie that just makes me think of Matthew 17. And the scene is this one. Here's a quick clip of it. And his skin shines.
This is what I am.
In Matthew 17:1, there's this moment. It's known as the transfiguration moment in Scripture. And Jesus plus Peter, James, and John, his top three, they go to the mountaintop. And what happens is this. It says, after 6 days, Jesus took him with Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, well, Lord, it is so good to be here. If you wish, I will build you 3 shelters. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Like what? Shelters? Why? It's super interesting. In Luke, in his account, it says this. It says, as Moses and Elijah were starting to leave, Peter, not even knowing what he was saying, blurted this out. He has no idea what's happening. He's confused, and he's letting excitement go. Again, why shelters? And to his defense, like it was a common Jewish practice to give temporary residence for God, like so that people could minister to God. But my guess, Peter's doing it because he wants to make this moment last. Let's keep them here. Yet in how he says it is he puts Jesus in the same category as Elijah and Moses. These people who were heroes of like his people, but they were just men. And Jesus is not just like one of the 3, he is the one. And Peter is like, wow. Yet what has happened in that wow is I'm confused. And instead of being silent and listening and humble, he talks and he tries to control the situation. And God is a hard pass to letting someone hijack his moments. Because what God really is trying to do here is get Peter's attention for him to learn and grow deeper in awe of God. Instead of controlling, trying to capture the moment, God is like, just be, listen, be present. God actually speaks in verse 5. He says, this is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. And I'm sure the wowzers are just going off like crazy for Peter. And the confusion becomes clear, but then also more confusion. Like, your son? Like, listen to him now, not you, God? Like how? And are you guys the same? And, will there one day be this thing called the Trinity? And explain it to me now, so I can explain it to all the good Christians so that they know 2,000 years later, even though they're going to struggle for, years and years about, even to this day, what that actually means. Again, Peter is thrown into the mix of surprise and awe and wonder and interest and curiosity and confusion with this all. And it is these experiences that then prepares Peter for what's to come. Again, what we talked about last week, disappointment of what will happen to Jesus, discouragement from denying him, regret from betraying him, and resignation from doing ministry because of that all. Until Jesus restores him, in which last week we saw Jesus restored him, and he lives out Jesus' calling unto him by being the builder of his church. This restoration came through Jesus in the moment. Again, Jesus has them catch a miraculous amount of fish again and reinstates Peter to be someone even in his failure. But I also believe he was able to restore Peter so quickly with one conversation, with one wowzer moment, because Peter had these wowzer moments prior. Because Peter let himself be wowed prior. And this wowzer moment with more fish and forgiveness from Jesus was a reminder of all of that. So now, we just saw a lot with Peter, having these wowzer moments that I think guided him to be the Christian God called him to be. And because Peter embraces these wowzer moments, feels them, and the restoration and guidance from God, he was able then to do exceedingly more than most. I think these emotions produce this in us. They keep you still interested in times of failure, in times of doubt, in times of confusion. Now, before we really dive into each of our words that we're kind of covering this week, to get you thinking for you and your context and how you interact with these, I want to share kind of my experience with the 6 words we're talking about. For me, like as a child, what you need to know is I was not in tune with my wowzer moments, or at the very least, I did not express them. I've said this before, but I feel bad for my parents. Like we'd be at Disney World, and I'd be like, cool, right? Or like they'd figure out a way to get that special thing for me that I've like been begging for, and then when I get it, I'd be like, I guess thank you. Or like they'd surprise me, and I'd be like, wow, beep boop, up, beep boop. Like I am a robot. I don't have emotion. I was programmed to just say and be here is kind of how I felt. And first off, like me not being wowed, I'm sure it did affect them. I'm seeing that through my own kids, like the ones that lean into the wow. It's just so much more fun and easier, right? But my posture of not being wowed carried into life for me for a long time. Like we'd win a game, woo. We'd lose a game, oh. This dessert is amazing, but instead of like, wow, I was like, how do I get 5 more of these, right? Or like, this experience, this is so cool. When am I going to do it again? And as I'm doing it, I'm already thinking about the next one. Like, I didn't really experience or feel, especially in the moment. It was like that, like when I finally got the wow in life, I was like Peter. Let's capture this. Let's make it last. Let's extend it. Until I met my wife, Sydney. I'm 4 years older than Sydney, and she was coming out of college, and I was like, ooh, cute college girl, right? And I was this like young youth pastor, and the thing about being a young pastor is you try to be older than you actually are, because like you want to show you're mature, and you want respect from your church as a whole. So I owned a house, I had a large ministry, I had bills, I had a responsibility, I had a Roth IRA. Nice, right? And Sydney was like, I just got out of class. Let's explore. It was awesome. And so a big part of like what drew me to her is she was just this energy of wow and fun and wonder. Like food with her, it was like wow. But like not just like, let's just fill our pie hole with like wow things, because that's like what you do. But like she would savor it and be like, whoa, this is so good. Like for her, she would save like the middle of the steak. This is like her thing. And she'd close her eyes and eat it and be like, oh, yum. Or we'd do like hiking trips and we'd see the mountains and I'd be like, whoa, that's cool. She'd be like, whoa. And I'd be like, let's go see the other one. She'd be like, no. Whoa, say it with me here. And like she would do kind of like the double rainbow guy, right? That I showed a couple weeks ago. She'd be like, whoa, like take it in, Aaron, take it in and hold me there. Or surprises I'd do for her, she'd be like run and she'd hug and she'd squeeze me and she'd shake. Like she'd be like, this is so great. Or life promotions that we'd have. She'd be like, Aaron, this is so big. This is so good. And so I've learned through her, because I kind of had to, or otherwise she'd be kind of mad at me if I didn't change my response. But I learned to lean into my wowzer moments, and when I did, it actually made life better. It made life richer. It made life fuller. It made good moments great moments. Like I'm not her still to this day, but I have learned like when I'm in awe and I sit in it, so much more just brews positively. And so I tell you this because I know there are probably 2 groups here right now. There are the wowzer people that are like, preach. And then there are the steady yetis. You know, you're like, and what I want to do is I want to propose for the steady yetis and even maybe some of the wowzers that potentially we all need to shift more to wowzer. Like whatever your number was at the beginning of the message today, shift it 2 or 3 notches or more. Because many times, these wow moments, it's how God gets our attention. It's how God continues to motivate us. It's what helps us be restored to God faster in times of failure and resignation. And it's how God can emotionally intrigue us to do exceedingly more like Peter. And I get some of y'all are like, it's just not me, Aaron. It's just not me. Or you might even be like, wait until you get older, son. Mature up, you young pastor. Wait till life hits you and it's less awesome, like literally. But actually, I looked into this. What's interesting is the data shows the older you get, the more awe you have. All right, so 18 to 29, 30 to 39, it just keeps getting higher is what the data shows. And I mean, this data, it starts at age 18, and I think it goes without showing that young kids, like the 5, 6, 7, 8, they probably are the highest, right? And have the most awe and wonder. So it would skew the trajectory of this chart. But for those that are like 10 to 40 right now, your wonder most likely needs to grow. And for those that are 40 and up and still steady, well, you need to spiritually mature up and grow in this awe area. Because honestly, Jesus' example to us and what he teaches us is our posture should be childlike. He says this like about the kingdom of God. He says, anyone who doesn't receive the kingdom of God like a child will never enter. We are to be a bit childlike. We are to be wanderers with awe towards faith in God. And it not only helps our faith, but it makes life greater. And I think that's the target Jesus is pointing us on. So what I want to do for our remaining time today is look at our words of wowzers and try to help us learn to be more childlike from them, or be more Peter-like so that we can do exceedingly more. We can feel life to the fullest and we can notice God well. Starting with the word surprise. So again, Peter's story started with fishing, and he gets this bystander kind of telling him, like, go fish over here, try over there. And it was after a long night of not catching fish. And he reluctantly throws his net there, and when he pulls the net up, tugs it, and it doesn't release right away, that's surprise, right? Surprise is an interruption caused by information that doesn't fit with our current expectation. Like, there's actually fish there. Are any of you surprise fans? Like, you like doing surprises or like to be surprised? Okay, like a few of you. I am not a surprise person. Sydney and I are actually very boring and practical in my mind. We don't really get surprise gifts for each other anymore. It's like, what's in the budget? Or I don't really want to waste the money guessing what you want, like, so why don't you just buy what you want? Like, literally, I just bought some new used running shoes for my birthday coming up in a few weeks, and I'm like, nice, I'm excited, happy birthday to me. But as I was reading about surprise, there is an important part to it that if you do what Sydney and I do, that we're actually missing out on. Research shows that surprise amplifies subsequent emotion, with more surprising events resulting in stronger emotional reactions, showing surprise amplifies, meaning the love one experiences from the gift receiving, it's amplified love when it's a surprise. Or the amount of support one feels of just showing up for them out of the blue, or the fun of a good event that you surprised a person with. The emotion after is bigger, and that can be used, and maybe even should be used in our attempt to bond better. Like, if you need some positive juices flowing between you and your grandkids or your kids or your spouse or your neighbor, surprise them. That might be where we need to start. But we see with Peter is he's surprised, right? Whoa, there's fish there. God uses this surprise action, and then what we see, and when he sees what's actually there, he has awe and wonder. Awe and wonder are very similar, but do have some slight differences according to Brene Brown. Awe is when we get this feeling of being in the presence of something amazing, often making us feel small. Wonder is when our attention is sparked by something extraordinary and inspires a desire to understand. So let's just talk about awe for a second. Awe leads to just like, whoa. And researchers state like, what's powerful about awe is it evokes humility. Like a time like that puts you in your place, like where you don't know everything. That like there are things beyond you. In which, why that's important to know is because research shows awe-inducing events may be one of the fastest and most powerful methods of personal change and growth. Like, awe can make you want more or better for your life. So if you want to be inspired to change, find awe in an area. Whereas wonder gives you the desire to want to understand the awe. I mean, we use wonder often when we describe questioning. Like, I wonder what will happen. Brene posts it like this. She shows like awe is like, whoa, I am in like part of something. Where wonder is like, wow, I want to learn and dig into it and understand. So now knowing these definitions and bringing that to Peter let himself be in awe of the miracle that Jesus did, providing fish. And whether that was simply humility that this guy knows fishing better than me, which no man ever does, or it was wonder like, what the? Like, I got to understand like who this man is and like what he's up to. No matter what it was, he intentionally lets himself emotionally be impressed with what's before him, to see the special things happening around him. How often do you let yourself do that? Like, how often do you let yourself be impressed? I unfortunately am not impressed easily, and it's a problem. It's a thing I don't really like about myself. It's caused me to be more cynical. It's caused me to not encourage others well. It's caused me to not be who I think God wants me to be. Even to myself, like, I am often not impressed with myself, even when I do, like, quote unquote, like, impressive things, right? And this is contrary to Jesus' way of living. Like, Jesus made sure he was impressed with people. He gives compliments. We talked about this a few weeks ago. And he's Jesus, right? Like, if someone should have a lack of impress, it's him. But he sees people moving in faith towards him, and he's impressed. We talked about the centurion's faith, and like, he says, like, just say the word, and that person at my house will be healed. And Jesus is like, whoa, you have big faith. Or a Canaanite woman, like, she'll be like, can you heal my daughter? And Jesus is like, woman, you have great faith. Or the poor widow's offering where she puts in 2 coins. And he's like, she's given way more than most. Jesus, sure, corrected and also was unimpressed while he was here. But he also found time to be impressed, to go emotionally there. Are you doing that? Because when you do, the world is better. Like, when you choose to see the world with optimism and impression and good, it actually leads to greater health. Check out this data. So quick definitions for you. A pessimist is a person who habitually expects the worst. An optimist is a person who thinks about the bright side of a situation. Well, the data says this. It shows that pessimists have significantly higher rates of anxiety and depression. Optimists have lower stress, better emotional resilience, less likelihood of mental illness. Showing your outlook and what you notice doesn't just reflect your feelings, it shapes them. And to me, as I read that, like, we can easily know the creator of the world didn't want us to experience emotional turmoil and mental illness. So in my mind, like, the creator of the world wants us to be optimistic people. So if you're not as impressed with life as much as you feel you should, like me, what should you do then? And I want to give you a few tangible strategies really quickly here. Slow down. Awe requires attention and time. Studies show that awe increases when people literally walk slower and observe. How about this one? Trade distraction for presence. Peter wasn't like on his phone when Jesus told him to throw his nets to the side. He wasn't distracted or slightly engaged. He was there. Be curious. Like, ask questions. Don't explain everything away. Like, you don't have to explain everything. Expose yourself to bigger than you moments, like live music, nature, sunsets, sunrises. We don't lack awe and wonder opportunities. We lack giving our attention to it. Peter gave his attention to it, and like, he was probably reluctant to do it at times, but he did it anyways. Like, whether he knew it was healthy of him to do or not, or it just was by chance that he said this time, I think it should encourage us to be more yes men and women. There's a movie, like, who's seen the movie Yes Man before? Like, it's a pretty fun movie. The guy starts out as, like, this pessimist, and he's reluctant to do things. And then all of a sudden, he, like, changes, and he starts saying yes to everything, and he loves life from it. Here's a little trailer from that. Check it out.
Wow.
Yes! Yes!
No.
You say no to life, and therefore you're not living. Every time an opportunity presents itself, you will say... Yes.
I do want to take guitar lessons.
I am WOWZERS. Would you be the man for me?
I guess so. Yes, I would like to learn Korean.
청주낚시는 어때요?
잘했어요. What did he call me? Oh.
Discover what happens.
You have to say yes to everything. Yes.
Peter, after his yes to throw his nets, he was surprised, he experienced awe and wonder, and then this person is of interest to him. Interest is the openness to engaging with a topic or experience. And not only that, he is curious of this person. Curiosity is recognizing a gap in our knowledge about something that interests us and investing in closing that gap. And this is where Peter's profound connection with God happens. He's not just interested in God, he's actually curious about this person potentially being the Messiah, God in flesh. He's emotionally invested. He's curious about like what that will mean for humanity, for his people, for his life, for his tomorrow. Curious about like what he should do. And this difference between interest and curiosity is where many people still today land somewhere in the Christian walk, in between there. Like there are so many people who are interested in knowing whether or not there is a God, like what happens after life, and for their own interests, like wanting to ensure they have a good enough general understanding of it all so they're not missing out on something good. But when they find out like there's work involved, like work to understand, work to pursue, work to be humble, work to say like I don't know, or to live in uncertainty of how it all works, there are many times like just I'm good with that. I'm just interested in God. I think of Facebook, like interest is as if you were to just like Jesus' Facebook page. That's it. And the reason you're maybe stuck there is likely because of your lack of awe, your lack of going into it. It didn't move you to go deeper, not because it wasn't awe-worthy, but honestly, it's probably because you're distracted. Distracted with consumerism, life, schedules, keeping up with the Joneses. There's a quote I've used before. It says this. It says, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. If you are just interested in God and busy, you will stay there. The ones who are curious are willing to put the time in, are willing to say no to distractions, are willing to ask the questions, they're able to process. People who are genuinely curious is where I see Jesus followers experience and know God. It's where Peter got to. Like he is genuinely curious, and his curiosity takes him to these amazing moments with Jesus. Like in the moment, were they all great and riveting and easy to focus on without being distracted? No, right? Like I'm sure there were idle times, there were awkward silences, there were awkward people he had to engage with. There were sacrifices, frustrating moments. But his curiosity, without filling his voids with busyness, led him to all he experienced, which I think many of us would have loved to have. In which the last word we haven't defined, that I feel is cohesive with Peter's journey, and it's also in sync with many of our own journeys today, especially ones who maybe are choosing curiosity with God, is the word confusion. And confusion is when you are unsure or have lack of clarity. Confusion can sound negative, but Brene, in all of her research, believes it is vital to growth. Confusion, she says, is vital to learning. It motivates and triggers problem solving. When confused, we typically engage in more careful deliberation. Confusion is often uncomfortable because you don't know, right? You don't know. Who likes to not know? Who likes to be uncomfortable? No one, right? No one. Yet to be honest, comfortable learning rarely leads to deep learning. Peter experiences confusion when he goes to that transfiguration moment. And it's like, what is happening? Like, who's who, what, and why are they all here? And like, whoa, right? Like, again, if we're flipping through Matthew, like from 4 to 13, like, you can kind of see, like, we see Jesus, he fulfills Messiah prophecies, he's teaching, he's healing. And then in chapter, 14, he walks on water, like Jesus and Peter, they have this moment, and he professes Jesus as the Messiah in chapter 16. But then he gets all confused in chapter 17. Because let's be real, some things in the Christian faith are confusing, right? Like the Trinity, I alluded to that earlier, and so many other things. But in chapter 17, like, the heroes of the faith are there. Moses, who is like the guy for all those people prior, like, he's the one guy, and he sees him, and he's like, whoa, let's make 3 shelters, one for each. This wasn't just confusion for him. This is awe overload. And he's just like, I got to control this experience. And then Jesus is like, no. First off, I am no equal to these other 2. They do not get a shelter that is equal to me, which is confusing, especially when you dig into it, like, what? Okay, like what? And then secondly, and most importantly, that's not the point. I think what Jesus probably said to him in that moment is, just be in awe of what's in front of you, Peter. And then when he does, he hears God speak, this is my son. It had to have been amazing. But what's interesting, especially now thinking of our own godlike moments that we maybe have today, like this or something similar to this, and the mistake Peter would have made if Jesus wasn't there to stop him, Peter would have let his confusion and desire to control ruin the wowzer moment. He'd be busy picking up sticks. I got to make this shelter over here. I got to make this shelter over here. He'd be busy. He'd miss it. And maybe he'd ruin it completely. He'd ruin or miss the clarity or the information he'd need to have greater faith in who Jesus was, to be who Jesus wanted him to be, the rock later on in life. And so I think what this teaches us is when confusion hits, you don't run. You don't control it. You embrace the awe of it, and you stay in while seeking for clarity. Because even once you get clarity, especially about Jesus, it doesn't typically eliminate confusion. It often leads you to deeper wonder and more curiosity. You see, surprise, awe, wonder, interest, curiosity, confusion, they're not random emotions, they're invitations. Invitations to notice God. Invitations to move towards him. Invitations to trust him, even when you don't fully understand him. And Peter, he didn't always get it right. He was surprised and then overwhelmed. He was in awe and then confused. He was curious and then did something dumb and tried to control it. But what he did do right is he kept stepping in. He said yes in reluctant situations, and that's what changed everything for him. So for you today, what if the problem isn't that God isn't moving, but that you've stopped noticing? What if he's been putting wow moments in front of you and you've just been too busy, too distracted, too fine to step into them? Peter didn't grow because he understood everything. He grew because he stepped into what he didn't understand and took time to say, wow. So here's your move this week. When something surprises you, don't brush past it. When something amazes you, don't numb it. When something confuses you, don't run from it. Lean in, slow down, pay attention, ask questions, and let yourself feel. Because on the other side of that wow might be God trying to get your attention. As we wrap up, a couple questions to ask yourself to be self-aware of, am I experiencing this? And then also to help others know if they're experiencing these emotions. First question would be like, what impresses me? Are there things I should be more impressed with? And then you can ask others, what has been impressing you lately? To help them be more aware of that. Another one, am I distraction-free ever? Like, what do I notice when I'm there? When was the last time you were distraction-free? What did you experience? Another question you can ask yourself, what am I curious about with God? What are you curious about? Ask them that to get them thinking on that. And then last one, When confusion hits, do I control it, assess it, or lean it and let it wow me? Or in the question you can ask others, what are you confused about in life? Have you ever left something up to faith? Again, I hope this helps you lean into wow moments and experience God more. Would you pray with me as I close this? Dear God, thank you for today. Thank you for just giving us the story of Peter so we can see how awe and wonder and surprise all stirs within your disciples, but then also how you do that still today. And God, help us experience those moments. We know that a lot of times those moments are for us to kind of look up and see you and notice you and to be present. So God, I just pray you help us do that and realize that as we kind of navigate these emotions. In your name we pray, amen.